Sivasankari ma'am, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me about your book. It's really a privilege, and I have been reading and I read some sections fully and some sections I'm beginning to read. But what a remarkable book. I think the way in which she has interviewed people, it's amazing. It's just the most probing, in-depth kind of analysis and interview that we have seen. And each of the snippets, of course, are also great. Thank you so much for doing this book. I will speak to you about...
Thank you for making me feel so good about it. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. And I'll speak to you about, the Tamil section of the literature. I am a Tamil by background, and so I have read a certain amount of Tamil literature, like in school, and I also read many of your stories when I was growing up. And as soon as I found out, about this, it was really great to be able to talk to you. Now, you've done a lot of things, and one, I think, overarching question that you have asked a number of these authors yourself, and many of the questions I'm going to ask you will be similar. What is your own opinion of the evolution of Tamil literature, either it's casual or more, serious or whatever, in, say, the last 50 years? Do you feel like it's getting to a point, or do you feel like it's drifting along, or whatever?
Instead of 50, let's start, say, 75, independence.
Sure.
A lot of things started happening then at that time because the independence movement had its own impact, influence in the literary field.
Right.
And you'll be aware that almost in all languages in India, the fiction part of it, short story, novels, they all started only the beginning of 20th century or 21st century or end of 20th century. So they're all hardly 30 years, 40 years old by the time we start talking about independence time. And we had a lot of Western impact because short story writing and novel writing essentially was an influence of Western literature. Because, of course, we had a great history of literature from Sangha Kalam days. I mean, Tamil, the oldest or the earliest they say is Tolkapiyam. And Tolkapiyam talks about grammar of a language. And if you have to talk about the grammar, then the language had to be so developed, isn't it? So, naturally what we had in our ancient literatures were something mind-boggling. The Sangha in Sangha Kalam itself we had 3 phases, no? I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, Idai Kalam, Tarkalam, then the modern days.
Right.
So, coming to your question, the education part of it started coming to people, particularly to women. So, and the new experience of enjoying the independence and also the lot of freedom they had and education they had, it really had impact in our literary world. And a lot of people started writing about social issues, interpersonal relationships, subconscious mind, a stream of consciousness. I would say the literature that developed in the last 50 years, 50 to 80, it was a golden era. Because you didn't have the invasion of television or cell phone or anything else to divert you. You only had literature. Of course, theatre was there, but comparatively much less. And people were literally, they were reading everything that was coming into their way. In 50s, you won't believe it, translations happened in a very big way, like Khandekar, and all these people were translated, Tagore, all these people from Bengali and Marathi were translated into Tamil. People were waiting to read, they were lapping it up. I would say those 30-40 years, that gave way to a lot of experimental writing. Opened up new doors and windows. The Dalit writing started coming in, progressive writing started coming in, and women, because of their education and exposure, they started writing. Like one writer beautifully put it, until then, people in the front courtyard, like Pandits and other people, were concentrating on literature. But in the last 50 years, people from the backyard, the working class, women, they all started expressing their views. So definitely we have done a lot of experimental work as far as Tamil is concerned, with its extraordinary great history of literature. But after 90s, when the invasion of, I would call it invasion of television, and now cell phone, YouTube and WhatsApp, these are all definitely diverting people's attentions, particularly youngsters' attention. When I was writing very seriously in 80s and 70s, people used to wait in the bus stand or railway station for the magazines to arrive from the main quarters. So they didn't even have the patience for them to open it up and bring it home. You know, that was the need or the craze or the search for people. But now I'm afraid that kind of a thing has come down. A number of magazines have reduced also, and they've all come to, few of them have switched over to electronic media. So there is definitely a shift in the reader's mentality, attitude, taste. Naturally, I'm sure it's happening all over the world.
Yeah, now there are several things you said here I want to follow up on. I mean, especially the women writers and the Dalit and so on. But I actually have an overarching question, which is, if you compare in the 18 languages that you went and studied and so forth, the status of modern Tamil literature, how much has it progressed, and how much it looks like it's on a path towards greater compared to any other language, Indian language, what would you say?
Bengal, because again the Britishers had their headquarters there, and people they had the access to education. Lot of things happened in Bengal, and next to that I would say a lot of things happened in Tamil Nadu, and Marathi, Kerala, all these places literature grew very well. Compared to that, literature from Manipur or literature from Indian Nepali, the Kashmiri, their first short story itself came only around in 30s and 40s, whereas we are 50 years ahead of them. But I can't blame them, because there was no exposure for them. Even if the exposure was there, where was the platform? You need platform to exhibit things, right?
This is great. I mean, again, I grew up in the era that you're talking about, and this business of waiting for the the magazines arrive and for the next installment of the serial, we did all that. It's really, really great. And of course, I moved out of India and started reading other stuff, and also television. But one thing that always struck me, if I look at Nobel Prize in Literature, right, a lot of it goes to English, but then you see quite a bit for European languages, Spanish and Korean and so on. Tamil is never, not even in the horizon. I don't know if this is because of the way the committees, and I know the prize process is very biased.
No, there are so many aspects to it. First, let's go to one point. When Tagore received the Nobel Prize, why didn't Subramanya Bharati? Anybody who reads Subramanya Bharati, he has contributed in all genres so beautifully, so deeply. He has literally awakened the society. Why? Because not enough of his works were translated into English. Number one, we need translations in the international language. Number two, we need lobbying. We need people to put them forward. If there are no people to put people forward, I mean, lobbying is also not the right word. They have to be recommended. They have to be put under spotlight. People should know. If they don't know at all, in Tamil we call Kanathu Tavala.
Of course.
A frog living in the well. However extraordinary talents it has, it's no use. It has to come out.
So I think it's really a lack of an organized effort to promote the literature.
One of them. Translation is one. Then organized effort to put it forward to the right people in the right corridors.
And in some of your interviews, this comes up several times, the literature as a means for socio-political movements. and how, for example, the Dravidian movement and so forth. I have a mixed feeling about it. Right? On the one hand, I think it's really a great, important instrument for developing political thought and ideology, but also to propagate and communicate. But then, non-political literature, literature that's deeply probing about one's psyche, also seems very important. But in quite a few of the interviews, I see kind of a position by some of the people that we interviewed, the importance of having a political angle, societal angle to the literature. How do you feel about it?
That's their views, okay? I can't be contradicting it. My view is that definitely literature can impact the society.
Right.
I can tell you from my own examples. Hundreds of them are there. If I talk about them, it might sound I'm bragging myself. So since you asked, let me just say, recently what happened? One man called me from Germany. It was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And he said there was anxiety in his voice. He said, ma'am, my phone numbers are unlisted because he said, I've been searching from magazine to magazine to get your number. I have put leave for the office today just because I wanted to talk to you. He said his father was an alcoholic and he was so violent, he ill-treated his wife so badly. This boy was so hurt emotionally, and for the past 10 years he had not spoken to his father. He just completely concentrated and finished his degree, got a job in Germany and went away, and for 10 years he has not spoken to his father. That previous night he had happened to see my book Oru Manithanin Kadai, which talks about alcoholism disease. He said, ma'am, I've come to know, it's an eye-opener, that my father had a disease. Right. He had to be treated. Instead, I was ignoring him, I was not talking to him. Like a son, I should have taken him for a treatment and made him all right. Had he had diabetes, I would have attended to it. Had he had typhoid, I would have attended to it. Similarly, it's a disease. So, ma'am, this morning I called my father and I talked to him after 10 years. Right. And I cried over the phone. I said, I'm putting leave in fortnight time, I'm coming there to take you to hospital and treat you. And he said, this I wanted to confess to you. Right. What do you call it? If there is no social impact in this.
Yeah, by the way, I've read that book. And that book
my intention is not to preach.
No, I understand.
No writer should be judgmental, no writer can preach. But if you sincerely, honestly, genuinely, with concern, if you share, it goes and touches people.
Yeah, no, I have read that book and I agree. But what I'm saying is, see, even without that, right, just great storytelling and a way of creating imagery, this is part of literature.
Sure.
And I'm just wondering, if when I read these interviews, I get a feeling that the sense of mission kind of comes a little bit above, the sense of just,
Fortunately or unfortunately, quite a few think that it's romanticism is not right. They call it, romanticism means not romance.
No, I know what it is,
It's bringing the beauty into the work. But not all believe in that. Some do, some don't.
And your own view as well.
My views?
Yes.
I believe in touching hearts as much as possible. I believe in writing about humans. I believe in writing about interpersonal relationships. I live in the society, so I care about the society. I want to write about the problems and the pluses and minuses. I write because I'm sharing. It's a process of sharing for me because I care.
Yeah, the other thing, see, a lot of cultures, I'm thinking about Latin American especially with magical realism and all that, derive in their modern writing and literature ideas and concepts somewhat from their own traditional lifestyle and all that, right? So it's not surprising if you look at that way, right, our own source of a lot of tales and everything is mythology. I remember reading an interview about the Agalya story.
Prapanchan.
Prapanchan. That was quite an amazing kind of, I'm just wondering, do we do more of that? Do we have more people kind of blending our more traditional, literature and art into the modern kind of thing?
You can't generalize it, but even Prapanchan, that one novel is an exception. Not everybody does everything, but definitely right from Pudumai Pittan, who is supposed to be a forerunner for the short stories. When he wrote in 40s itself, he wrote a story on Agalya. Agalya comes to life with Rama's sparsham touch. But when she comes to know later on, when he sends his pregnant woman back to the forest, she says, I'd rather be a stone, I'll go back to as a stone. I don't want to be honored by this person. So people have done stories like that. Not many, but a lot of people have done.
If you talk about women writers a lot, so wind forward a little bit. This book has been written 25 years ago. Do you see women writers, coming up to prominence these days in Tamil literature?
I would say still, 25 years before the golden era I mentioned, lot more people were coming. Today they have more diversions, better earning pastures, greener pastures. So people are coming, youngsters are there, but not many women writers are coming. They prefer to go to IT jobs, they prefer to go to television or visual or whatever, which is more remunerative.
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame them for
No, not at all, not at all. But it's a fact that the type of writers that were coming up from 60s, 70s, 80s, that kind of numbers are not to be found anymore. Not to be found anymore. But there are people who write good writing, definitely. And but the magazines, platforms are limited. Now it's only the visual media. But everybody, whether they are a good writer or not, they now write blogs. So they are everybody has become a writer now. Everybody, if you open up YouTube, everybody says, I've written blogs, so I'm a writer. So you can't call them all good literature. They're all writings, okay?
No, this is, we have come to a point of almost dilution or democratization, if you will, of the voice in terms of social media, right? Not just blogs, Facebook pages, WhatsApp. And so everybody can express themselves freely.
Sure.
And it's not just about, in Tamil, it's true in all languages, right? But yet, I find, at least in the West, in English, there is a thriving body of literature while all of this online stuff is going on. I wonder if you feel in Tamil whether this has been productive or negative.
No, here again, let me tell you, even here we have a thriving publishing industry. As I said, these days people publish their own books.
Right, that's not bad.
It's print on order. You can print 5 books today, 10 books today. You don't have to wait and depend on a publisher. You can go and print your own books. So lots of facilities are available now. People who want to publish their book, they are keen on their writing coming out, they still do. But you must remember, Western market is a worldwide market, whereas in Tamil is restricted, isn't it? So to that extent, and people like Konkani or Manipuri, they still have absolutely a limited market. And the Manipuri writers I interviewed, he said, it's very unfortunate. He said he had published his own book, 1,000 book, gave 200 free copies. 800 are still lying with him because there is no marketing, there is no network, there is no facility. He told me, can I give you 200 books, will you go and take it? What will I do with 200 Manipuri language books? So, compared to that, Tamil Nadu's situation is much, much better. We cannot compare it with the Western countries because, as I said, it's global market. Tamil is not global market, although the Tamils are all over the world now.
Yeah, we have, especially in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Last question, this last topic, if you will, the whole Dravidian movement and its impact on the literature, you've actually discussed it quite a bit with different authors and so on. And I'm trying to read your opinion in the middle of all the other opinions. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm getting the impression that it's not been entirely a positive development for the development of literature. Politically, socially it might have been useful, but I wonder what you really think.
That's
about
how one or two writers whom I have interviewed have said it. But Jayakantan, one of the very senior and important writer, he himself has said, it was like that, but now even that is changing. Very good writers are coming from there also. So it's all changing. And they have definitely influenced people through cinema.
Right, sure.
The
That we
Dravidian
know.
movement and cinema connection,
Yeah.
how important it is in political development for the last 50 years.
Yeah.
So we cannot just sideline it.
No, I don't mean that. I'm wondering if you feel, see, because sometimes a political movement can tend to narrow the audience and the focus rather than broaden. And literature, should be unleashed.
The same thing can be applied to communist
Yeah,
literature.
exactly, yeah, same thing.
Because
Yeah, right.
many people have told me in the interview
right.
that some of the communist literature became propaganda.
Right, it's not.
There was no emotion or the Aragil, what we call the
Right,
the
right.
beauty
Aragil
of
is what
it.
you talk
That's
about,
not
yeah.
there.
Right.
It's just message.
Yeah.
So that becomes a propaganda
Yeah, that's what I'm
literature.
talking about,
So
right.
it can happen. It can happen. So whether you belong to a party or you don't belong to a party, you are an independent writer, you must be conscious of what you do. Whether the content you are taking to the reader,
Yeah.
how effective it's going to be. Yeah, literature becomes meaningful if only it reaches and touches the heart and make the reader think.
That's a great note to end this conversation. Thank you so much for your
Thank you,
time. And I
Anand.
hope, a lot of people read this book.
Thank you so much.
And learn so much about
Thank you
our
so
own
much.
country and so on. Thank you.